All right, so we got to talk about this because there is a very real possibility that Cejudo ends up slipping into this fight against Sean O'Malley in Boston and taking that fight from Aljamain Sterling. And that's a big, big deal. And you got to ask yourself, who's responsible for this? Because I saw a new report today that changed my perspective where I'm like, damn, if that's true, if the facts of this report are true, this isn't on Aljo. This isn't on Aljo. And we need to talk about how this happened to see if someone did anything intentionally or whether or not this is just like mixed communication. And we'll talk about why this kind of thing happens in general. So let's talk about that. Let's jump into it. It's actually a pretty interesting topic given the drought that we're in terms of UFC fights. So let's talk about that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do that. I love you guys for that. I really genuinely do. Let's go ahead and take a look at this, though. All right. So this is what we're going to look at right here. All right. I'm going to make myself small, and we're going to look at this report, and then we're going to talk about it.
Sean O'Malley's coach admits feeling bad for Aljamain Sterling. After Aljamain Sterling's UFC 288 win over Henry Cejudo, the bantamweight champion quickly found himself involved in a heated face-to-face stare-down with #1 contender Sugar Sean O'Malley, who the UFC quickly whisked into the octagon to promote their inevitable title fight. Shortly after, during the post-fight press conference, UFC President Dana White was asked when the fight would potentially take place. White stated that the bout would likely take place in Boston. In the wake of the event, it was announced that the Boston card, referenced by White, would take place in August, meaning the Funkmaster was in for a rather quick turnaround. Although the fight had been verbally agreed upon and announced by the UFC, Sterling's coach, Ray Longo, revealed that, to his knowledge, no contracts had been signed. In addition, Sterling was quick to point out that he needs to make sure his body is 100% ready before signing on the dotted line. That created quite a bit of
what? That changes things.
Controversy, with Dana White then suggesting if the champ wasn't ready to fight, the UFC would create an interim title and have O'Malley compete against Triple C, Henry Cejudo, who had been campaigning for the fight. Despite what many believed to be uncertainty surrounding the fight, Sterling was quick to fire back, saying that he would in fact be competing at UFC 292. The way Sugar Sean's coach, Tim Welsh, sees things, the situation is an unfortunate one for the champ. However, at the end of the day, he trusts the UFC's decision-making. During a recent episode of the MMA Hour, he weighed in on the situation, saying,
I mean, it does kind of suck for Aljo, just having to get pushed in there and not really getting a say. But the UFC knows what they're doing. So I just try to stay out of that.
So far, Welsh has managed to keep himself out of the crossfire as O'Malley and Sterling trade verbal blows, giving the Funkmaster credit and calling him the most dangerous champ in the history of the 135-pound division.
Definitely the most dangerous champ for O'Malley. Let me actually think about that, what he just said after.
With the highly anticipated card on the horizon at the end of the summer, there's been much debate about whether the short turnaround for the champ will negatively impact Sterling heading into the fight, considering
UFC hopes so.
He has to cut quite a bit of weight in order to make the 135-pound title limit. It'll be interesting to see how things play out when the two men step into the octagon. When the two collide at UFC 292, how do you see things playing out? Drop your predictions for the fight in the comment section below. Conor McGregor.
All right. So, if you guys recall, right, the way this story was presented was that the fight was made for UFC in Boston, and that when Aljo was asked about it, he goes, I don't know if my body holds up. And Dana was like, bro, what are you doing? And I even commented on that. I said the same thing. I'm like, what are you doing? You're fighting against O'Malley. Your job is to promote that fight, right? That's your job, dude. That is your job. And you are not doing a good job promoting that fight, because guess what, pal? If you put questioning, if you start questioning, hey, Aljo, are you looking forward to fighting O'Malley in Boston? Well, I'm not really sure if I'm fighting O'Malley in Boston. Wait, say that again? Yeah, not 100% sure. I mean, probably. I'll probably fight him. Oh, wow, I was so excited for that fight. No. I mean, you should still be excited, but I'm just not 100% sure it happens. Okay, well, hey, Gabrielle, are we going to Cancun July 13th? Maybe. I thought we booked that. Well, we targeted it, but we haven't booked it. Oh, okay, so I can't like get all the way excited because we're not 100% sure that we're going. Well, no, I mean, I think we're going, but like, I haven't booked it. Oh, okay, cool. So not the same thing as promoting it as it being done. So I was hard on Aljo for that. Okay. Now, the way that this is being presented today, it's very different. Okay. If the UFC said they are targeting UFC Boston and bout agreements have not been signed, that's different. That is different. Now, behind the scenes, it is highly possible that Aljo said, yeah, I'll do it. And then he went and talked to his team and they're like, dude, are you sure? Like, do you want more time to recover? You just had a 5-round fight, yada, yada, yada. And the UFC's like, dude, you already agreed and we already announced it. And if that's the case, right, you got to say, well, is there an ulterior motive for why the UFC announced that so fast before they had a bout agreement? And I would say yes. I would say yes, there is, right? UFC's not stupid. They know what's up. Until you have a signed bout agreement, the fight's not 100%. Now, I will say this. I know for a 100% fact that UFC 271, Izzy against Robert Whittaker, they were promoting that fight and they did not have a signed bout agreement. All the way up till like 3 weeks before the fight, maybe even less. Like Izzy was not signed and they were playing hardball. That's how he got a new contract. Was they had already promoted it and all that and he was holding out for a new contract. That's why Izzy got that huge contract. Well, I mean, that and many other things. So I can tell you for sure that they do promote fights that someone has a sign for. In this case, though, this is different, right? This is different. The A side is Izzy. So Izzy might be holding out and he's playing hardball. In this case, the leverage is the UFC's because Aljo's not the draw. O'Malley is the draw. Okay? If you tell the UFC, yeah, man, hey, listen, dude, it's gonna be a really tough turnaround for Aljo. They're all, is it? They're all, yeah, man, it's gonna be really tough. They're all, Well, so I guess that gives O'Malley a better chance of winning. And they're like, yeah, definitely. Just a little bit better chance of winning. It's like, Well, I think that certainly favors the outcome that we want because obviously they want O'Malley to win because O'Malley is one of the only guys that could be an enormous, enormous star. Aljo is a known entity. He's an exceptional fighter. He is the toughest guy at 135. He's a nightmare matchup. He's herky-jerk on the feet. He's impossible to figure out because he doesn't, fall into any rhythm. And he is built to smash and to have long limbs. I talked about this in another video. And I will say it again in case you missed it. The reason why Aljo is so dominant, and I'm talking about outside of just his skills. Actually, hang on. Let me finish this point. O'Malley is the guy. That is who he is the prospect that they have known all along that they want to be the champion, and he is right there. You don't get 100 chances, right? They wish they could have him fighting someone else, but Aljo is the champion, so that's who he's going to fight. And so they want to give him the best opportunity to win. And now, so they announce the fight, and then if Aljo's like, look, I can't fight, boom, Cejudo. Boom, Cejudo, right? Now, I will say that as I'm thinking this through, though, when Aljo said he wasn't sure if he was ready and Cejudo called Dana, there isn't any real way that they could have known that Cejudo would step in, once they'd announced it. I mean, they could say, like, regardless, we'll do an interim belt either way if he won't fight. But if Aljo told the UFC he was going to fight, I mean, it is what it is. But I will say this. They know O'Malley's ready, and that is the main reason this fight is happening, is to get O'Malley his title shot. If O'Malley becomes an interim champion before the title fight, all that means is more money for O'Malley and a much, much bigger, well, I don't even know if it's going to make it bigger, but probably a bigger draw to the pay-per-view. And so when it comes to the stylistic matchup between O'Malley and Aljo and why it's such a terrible, horrendous matchup for Sean, I want to start again by just talking about why Aljo is so dominant. And that is because his skills are incredible, but in addition to just his skills, he has this very unique body type that I can't think of like almost any other people that really fall into this type of category. I mean, there's probably, if I really thought hard about it, there's probably a few. But you know what? Anthony Smith is kind of this way too. When I think about it, I'm trying to think of any other guys but here's this. Okay, look. So there are 3 types of fighting body types, and this is just across the board. You know, obviously there are like little intricacies, but primarily you have 3 different types. Okay, you have guys that are big, thick, stocky guys, generally a little bit shorter, but built Mack trucks smaller, shorter and more compact, like me. I'm one of those guys. Okay, we, when it comes to grappling, are better at smashing, right? We get on top of you and you make it to where you can't breathe and you can't move, and we just put a load of top pressure on you. But the flip side of that is that it is very, very challenging for us to do fancy jiu-jitsu, right? In grappling, where having long limbs helps. Like doing triangles is not easy for us, right? Like triangles and other types of like things where you could put people in danger from your back because, you know, like what Nate Diaz did to that guy on the street. Like that kind of choke is so easy because his arms are so long. It's just like, you know, they're like snakes that he can wrap around their neck, right? And so the flip side of our body, and then also in striking, you know, we're tighter, compact. So we get inside and we can just generate just like nuclear power from being a tight little compact body type. Bam, 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 you know? But also we have no neck. Very hard to choke. The flip side of that is you have the other end of the spectrum, which are these long, lanky guys, really, really long arms, right? And then striking, they can hit you from really far away. They can kick you from really far away. Okay? They're very hard to deal with on a length, from the length perspective. But those guys, okay, if those guys get in tight, like I was just saying, get in tight, those guys don't want to be in tight ever because they can't, like their arms are longer, right? Like it's not as simple as just bap. Okay? If they're better at distance. Okay? And then on the ground, they can do a lot of fancy jiu-jitsu, but they have a long neck. Okay, they're much better off their back. They could do a lot of fancy stuff. They have a longer neck. So like the styles are very different, right? And the middle is kind of like right in between both. And Aljo has the best of both worlds. It's really bizarre. He has super long limbs, but he's also built to smash. It's really weird, which is why his grappling is so dominant, dude. It's like, you know, he's a back hunter, but also he has these really long legs that he can body triangle you with, right? So like, and I mean, just I could think of a million grappling examples like that, where he has long ass limbs and he's also built stacked. It's really weird, which makes him incredibly hard to deal with. And on the feet, it's not like you can just keep him away at distance. You know, like he can reach you from pretty far. O'Malley is obviously the slender type. You know, like the, you know, kind of like the lankier, long body type. Very hard to deal with at distance. I mean, very hard. And on the ground, O'Malley is a very good grappler, dude. He really is, dude. I found this video of him. You know what? I'm going to do a separate video about that, actually. I need to write that down. I might have even forgot to do that if we wouldn't have thought about that, dude. Sean O'Malley grappling match. Okay. And then like you think about how this fight breaks down, and O'Malley is very likely to get strangled, is my opinion, because he's got such that long, like super long neck. You know, he is like, those guys have a hard time with guys who can smash, and Aljo is incredible at smashing, taking the back, and strangling. So, but at the same time, dude, O'Malley has something very, very special. This could very easily be his Conor McGregor moment, dude. Everyone picked Aldo. Everyone. And he starts him in 13 seconds. Everyone is going to pitch Aljo. Think about that, dude. Aldo starts in 13 seconds. Aljo, everyone's going to pick him to win. Literally, everyone's going to pick him to win. So if O'Malley comes out, it could be his moment, dude. Could be his moment. But anyway, that is what I've got for right now. I appreciate you guys watching, and subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends. Peace.